a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking at this and I'm going, somebody made a master's thesis and then a doctorate off of something that somebody wrote down, and this could be one of the students. I mean, you could explain that to your student going, in some point in the future, what you're writing down, your experience could do exactly what this has done. And in somebody else's life, where they can look at it and go, oh, that person experienced that.
The number of diaries and journals written, studied, and published are legion. One of the projects that I worked on, and I'm still working on, was something I called undergraduate literary culture. I discovered that something like 75% of all the poems that were published in journals and magazines in the 18th century in colonial America were published by college graduates. And we're talking about the graduates of King's College and the College of New Jersey and Harvard, for example. But students in the 18th century wrote down not only what they experienced and what they felt, but they also tried their hand in poetry. And they wrote it down in their diaries, their journals, their commonplace works. And so my argument was, wouldn't it be interesting to discover what they had written in those commonplace books and where they had learned. And in fact, they had learned a lot. For example, a Harvard tutor, Henry Flint, which was the subject of a poem written by Benjamin Church, my dissertation subject. That name at Harvard ended up in the commonplace book of King's College at Columbia today, college student. How did that happen? Similarly, a poem that I found in one commonplace book at Harvard popped up in another commonplace book all the way down in New Jersey. How did that happen? Because students were in constant communication with each other. In addition, I went to Brown, which used to be the College of Rhode Island back in the 18th century, and I discovered a whole collection of manuscripts of poems written by a student. And then I found in another folder another collection of poems that were not written by the student, but that were penned by all the great poets of the 18th century, like Johnson and Pope and Swift, etc. Very clearly, I examined the two, and what did I discover? That the student modeled the poems he had written that were his own on the poems that he read in magazines and newspapers that had been written by others. These kinds of documents can teach us all kinds of things about different cultures. And not only that, they can also provide us with an endless source of ideas to discuss and individual projects that we can use in the classrooms. So that's an excellent point, and I think certainly something that can be used. And if you, for example, decide to go to the Oak Trees or one of the other historical museums in Oklahoma, find out, of course, what their hours are, find out what the procedures are. Most historical societies have procedures, what they expect you to tell them, what to expect when you're asking what they have, and trying to discover. There is a procedure, and it is very simple usually. And most people who work in these historical societies are very interested in meeting people. Why? It's like a librarian. The old idea of the librarian, you won't let you get near a book because you might touch it. And those ideas are long gone. Most historical societies and libraries are more than happy to share the contents of the repositories with you. Oh, they have rules and regulations about what you can touch and what you can't touch, and what you can copy and what you can't copy because it may disintegrate. But there are ways and means of getting copies, photographs, microfilms, etc. of all of them. In other words, all I'm suggesting is that this is one avenue that I would assiduously encourage you to follow. I have never stopped doing this. And every time, of course, as the article that Tim sent you, which I thought was particularly appropriate given our discussion of fact and fiction in the last debates. It was in the New York Times the other day in preparation for the Academy Awards on Sunday night. was a perfectly good example. And of course, you all read about the senator, or the people in Connecticut who got all upset because Elizabeth Spielberg had not given credit to the senators from Connecticut who had voted for the Emancipation Proclamation. Another example of how inaccuracy and error can prevent and ultimately color our ideas of anything and everything.